we are going to be taking a look at the Senate hearings. I believe this is day 2. Now, it's important that people understand they are using this to go after the independent media, the alternative media, both the left and the right. I also believe that Russia didn't act alone. They would have had to have help within Facebook, which already had our own intelligence, CIA, FBI, other agencies. Their fingerprints were already inside Facebook. So we have senators colluding with the tech giants. Even the president himself met with the heads of the tech giants. U.S. intelligence already inside Facebook. It's as if the Russians were given a PDF from our very own CIA. So without further ado, I am going to share this content with you. I'll be on standby, right? I'll be commenting on what is going on. There may be certain moments that you notice. Feel free to leave a comment down below, right? Let us know. You can put a little time code where you want to draw attention. But this very much is a staged investigation. The tech giants themselves have given these senators money. So let us begin here.
Were elevated on Google search during the recent mass shootings in Las Vegas. Meanwhile, YouTube has become RT's go-to platform. Google has now uncovered 1,100 videos associated with this Russian campaign. Much more of your content was likely spread through other platforms. But it's not just the platforms that need to do more. The United States government has thus far proven incapable of meeting this 21st century challenge. Unfortunately, I believe this effort is suffering in part because of lack of leadership at the top.
Problem, reaction,
we have a president who remains unwilling to acknowledge the threat that Russia poses to our democracy. President Trump should stop actively delegitimizing American journalism and acknowledge and address this very real threat posed by Russian propaganda. I believe that Congress, too, must do more. We need to recognize that the current law was not built to address these threats. I partnered with Senators Klobuchar and McCain on what I believe is the most light-touch legislative approach, which I hope all my colleagues on this panel will review. The Honest Ads Act is a national security bill intended to protect our elections from the foreign interference we all want to avoid. Finally, but perhaps most importantly, the American people also need to be aware of what is happening to our news feeds. We all need to take a more discerning approach to what we are reading and sharing and who we're connecting with online. We need to recognize the person at the other end of that Facebook or Twitter argument may not be a real person at all. The fact is that this Russian weapon has already proved its success and cost effectiveness. We can be assured that other adversaries, including foreign intelligence operatives and potentially terrorist organizations, have read this playbook and are already taking action. It's why we collectively must act. To our witnesses today, I hope you will detail what we saw in the last election, and most importantly, tell us what steps you will undertake for us to get ready for the next one. We welcome your participation and encourage your commitment to addressing this shared responsibility. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Warner. I'd like to notify members we will have 7-minute rounds today by seniority. Gentlemen, if I could ask you to please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated. Ms. Stretch, we're going to recognize you, then Mr. Edgett, then Mr. Walker. Ms. Stretch, the floor is yours.
Chairman Burr, Vice Chairman Warner, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for for this opportunity to appear before you today.
So he's a lawyer.
My name
for
is Colin
Facebook.
Stretch, and since July 2013, I've served as the General Counsel of Facebook. We appreciate this committee's hard work to investigate Russian interference in the 2016 election. At Facebook, our mission is to create technology that gives people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. We are proud that each of you uses Facebook to connect with your constituents, and we understand that the people you represent expect authentic experiences when they come to our platform to share and connect. We also believe that we have an important role to play in the democratic process and a responsibility to protect it on our platform. That's why we take what's happened on Facebook so seriously. The foreign interference we saw during the 2016 election is reprehensible. That foreign actors hiding behind fake accounts abused our platform and other internet services to try to sow division and discord and to try to undermine our election process is directly contrary to our values and everything we stand
I
for.
want to draw attention to the women behind
Our
him.
goal at Facebook is to bring people closer together.
This strange.
These foreign actors sought to drive people apart.
Sometimes it's just the mannerisms.
In our investigation, which continues to this day,
Facial
we have found
expressions?
that these actors used fake accounts to place ads on Facebook and Instagram that reached millions of Americans over a 2-year period. And that those ads were used to promote pages, which in turn posted more content.
Look right over
People
here.
shared these posts, spreading them still further. Many of these ads and
Android thing
posts are
going on.
inflammatory. Some are downright offensive. We know that much of this content is particularly hurtful to members of the Facebook community that engaged with this content believing it was authentic. People should believe content on Facebook is authentic and should not have to worry that they are being exploited in a cynical effort to prey on painful fault lines in our society in order to inflame discourse in this country. In aggregate, the ads and posts we are here today to discuss were a very small fraction of the overall content on Facebook, but any amount is too much. All of these accounts and pages violated our policies, and we removed them. Going forward, we are making significant investments. We're hiring more ad reviewers, doubling or more our security engineering efforts, putting in place tighter ad content restrictions, launching new tools to improve ad transparency, and requiring documentation from political ad buyers. We're building artificial intelligence to help locate more banned content and bad actors. We're working more closely with industry to share information on how to identify and prevent threats so that we can all respond faster and more effectively. And we're expanding our efforts to work more closely with law enforcement. We know bad actors aren't going to stop their efforts. We know we'll all have to keep learning and improving to stay ahead of them.
There's a bit of irony
We also know we can't do this alone.
in them calling
That's why I want to thank you for this investigation.
the Russians
We look
the
forward to
bad
the conclusions you will ultimately
actors.
share with the American public,
This guy's a bad
and
actor.
I look forward to your questions.
The senators are bad
Mr.
actors,
Edges, the floor is yours.
right? It's
Chairman
a
Burr,
stage investigation.
Vice Chairman Warner, and members of
There
this committee.
is truth that shared
Twitter
later.
understands the importance
You'll
of the
see.
committee's inquiry into Russia's interference in the 2016 election, and we appreciate the opportunity to appear here today. The events underlying this hearing have been deeply concerning to our company and the broader Twitter community. We are committed to providing a service that fosters and facilitates free and open democratic debate and that promotes positive change in the world. We are troubled by reports that the power of Twitter was misused by a foreign actor for the purpose of influencing the U.S. presidential election and undermining public faith in the democratic process. The abuse of our platform to attempt state-sponsored manipulation of elections is a new challenge for us, and one we are determined to meet. Today, we intend to show the committee how serious we are about addressing this new threat by addressing the work we are doing to understand what happened and to ensure that it does not happen again. At the time of the 2016 election, we observed and acted on instances of automated and malicious activity. As we learned more about the scope of the broader problem, we resolved to strengthen our systems going forward. Elections continue all the time, So our first priority was to do all we could to block and remove malicious activity from interfering with our users' experience. We created dedicated teams within Twitter to enhance the quality of information our users see and to block malicious activity whenever and wherever we find it. Those teams continue to work every day to ensure Twitter remains a safe, open, transparent, and positive platform. We have also launched a retrospective review to find Russian efforts to influence the 2016 election through automation, coordinated activity, and advertising. While that review is still underway, we have made the decision to review and share what we know today in the interest of transparency and out of appreciation for the urgency of this matter. We do so recognizing that our findings may be supplemented as we continue to work with the committee staff and other companies, discover more facts, and gain a greater understanding of these events. My written testimony details the methodology and current findings of our retrospective review in detail. We studied tweets from the period September 1st to November 15th, 2016. During that time, we did find automated and coordinated activity of interest. We determined that the number of accounts we could link to Russia and that were tweeting election-related content was comparatively small, about 1/100th% of total Twitter accounts at the time we studied. 1/3 of 1% of the election-related tweets people saw came from Russian-linked automated accounts. We did, however, observe instances where Russian-linked activity was more pronounced and have uncovered more accounts linked to the Russian-based Internet Research Agency as a result of our review. We have also determined that advertising by Russia Today and 7 small accounts was related to the election and violated either the policies in effect at the time or that have since been implemented. We have banned all of those users as advertisers, and we will donate that revenue to academic research into the use of Twitter during elections and for civic engagement. We are making meaningful improvements based on our findings. Last week, we announced industry-leading changes to our advertising policies that will help protect our platform from unwanted content. We are also enhancing our safety systems, sharpening our tools for stopping malicious activity, and increasing transparency to promote public understanding of all of these areas. Our work on these challenges will continue for as long as malicious actors seek to abuse our system and will need to evolve to stay ahead of new tactics. We have heard concerns about Russia's actors' use of Twitter to disrupt the 2016 election and about our commitment to addressing that issue. Twitter believes that any activity of that kind, regardless of magnitude, is unacceptable, and we agree that we must do better to prevent it. We hope that our appearance today and the description of the work we have undertaken demonstrates our commitment to working with you, our industry partners, and other stakeholders to ensure that the experience of 2016 never happens again. Cooperation to combat this challenge is essential. We cannot defeat this evolving shared threat alone. As with most technology-based threats, the best approach is to combine information and ideas to increase our collective knowledge. Working with the broader community, we will continue to test, to learn, to share, and to improve so that our product remains effective and safe. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Edgett. Mr. Walker, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chairman Burr, Vice Chairman Warner, members of the committee, for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Kent Walker. I'm Senior Vice President and General Counsel at Google. I oversee our legal, our policy, our trust and safety, and our Google.org teams. I've worked at the intersection of technology, security, and the law for over 25 years, starting my career as an assistant U.S. attorney for the U.S. Department of Justice, focused on technology crimes. Let me start my conversation with you today by joining the earlier comments, acknowledging the victims and the families of the awful attack in New York yesterday. As a New York employer, we know how strong and tough New Yorkers are, and we look forward to doing anything we can to help. Turning to the issues before the committee today, Google believes that we have a responsibility to prevent the misuse of our platforms, and we take that very seriously. Google was founded with a mission of organizing the world's information and making it universally accessible and useful. The abuse of the tools and platforms we build is antithetical to that mission. Google is deeply concerned about attempts to undermine the democratic elections. We are committed to working with Congress, law enforcement, others in our industry, and the NGO community to strengthen protections around elections, to ensure the security of users, and to help combat disinformation. We recognize the importance of this committee's mandate, and we appreciate the opportunity to share information and talk about solutions. Of course, disinformation and propaganda campaigns aren't new and have involved many types of media and publications over the years. And for many years, we've seen attempts to interfere with our online platforms. We take these threats very seriously. We've built industry-leading security systems, and we've put those tools into our consumer products as well. Back in 2007, we launched the first version of our safe browsing tool, which helps protect users from phishing, malware, and other attacks. Today, safe browsing is used on more than 3 billion devices worldwide. If we suspect that users are subject to government-sponsored attacks, we warn them about that. And last month, we launched our Advanced Protection Program, which helps protect those at greatest risk of attack, like journalists, business leaders, and politicians. We face motivated and resourceful attackers, and we are continually evolving our tools to stay ahead of ever-changing threats. Our tools don't just protect our physical and network security, but they also detect and prevent attempts to manipulate our systems. On Google News, for example, we use fact-check labels to help users spot fake news. For Google Search, we have updated our quality guidelines and evaluations to help surface more authoritative content from the web. We've updated our advertising guidelines as well to prohibit ads on sites that misrepresent themselves. And on YouTube, we employ a sophisticated spam and security breach detection system designed to detect anomalous behavior and catch people trying to inflate view counts of videos or numbers of subscribers. And as threats evolve, we will continually adapt in order to understand and prevent new attempts to misuse our platforms. With respect to the committee's work on the 2016 election, we've looked across our products to understand whether government-backed entities were using our products to disseminate information in order to interfere with the U.S. election. While we did find some deceptive activities on our platform associated with suspected government-backed accounts, that activity appears to have been relatively limited. Of course, any activity like this is more than we would like to see. We've provided the relevant information to the committee, have issued a public summary of the results of our review, and we will continue to cooperate with the committee's investigation. Going forward, we will continue to expand our use of cutting-edge technology to protect our users, and we'll continue working with governments to ensure that our platforms aren't abused. We will also be making political advertising more transparent, easier for users to understand, and even more secure. In 2018, we'll release a transparency report showing data about who is buying election ads on our platform and how much money is being spent.
The video is not sped up.
We'll pair that transparency report with a database available for public research of election and ad content across our ads products.
Available for download now.
We're also going to make it easier for users to understand who bought the election ads they see on our networks. Going forward, users will be able to easily find the name of any advertiser running an election ad on Search, YouTube, or the Google Display Network through an icon on the ad. We'll continue enhancing our existing safeguards to ensure that we permit only U.S. nationals to buy U.S. election ads. We already tightly restrict which advertisers can serve ads to audiences based on political leanings. Moving forward, we'll go further by verifying the identity of anyone who wants to run an election ad or use our political interest-based tools and confirming that that person is permitted to run that ad. We certainly can't do this alone. We'll continue to work with other companies to better protect the collective digital ecosystem, and even as we take our own steps, we remain open to working on legislation that promotes electoral transparency. Moreover, our commitment to addressing these issues extends beyond our services. We've offered in-person briefings and introduced a suite of digital tools designed to help election websites and political campaigns protect themselves from phishing, unauthorized account access, and other digital attacks. We're also increasing our longstanding support for the bipartisan Defending Digital Democracy Project. Let me conclude by recognizing the importance of the work of this committee. Our users, advertisers, and creators must be able to trust in their security and safety. We share the goal of identifying bad actors who have attempted to interfere with our systems and abuse the electoral process. We look forward to continued cooperation, both with the members of this committee and with our fellow companies, to provide access to tools that help citizens express themselves while avoiding abuses that undercut the integrity of elections.
That lady behind him.
Thank you again for the opportunity to tell you about our ongoing efforts. We look forward to our continuing work with Congress on these important issues, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Camera off me.
Mr. Walker, thank you for your testimony.
This guy drops
Chair
some
would
interesting
recognize
data
himself
later.
and
Look at that
share
alcoholic
with
face.
members that I'm going to talk about one specific ad. It's not going to count to my 7 minutes, and the Vice Chairman is going to do the same at the beginning of his, sort of set the stage for much of what we'll talk about today. As an example, I'd like to highlight one specific case with real-world implications involving two different Facebook groups, both of which are associated with the Russian Internet Research Agency. You'll see the first board that is up. First group's called The Heart of Texas, with over 250,000 followers. This account promoted pro-Texas causes and included posts many would characterize as anti-immigration or anti-Muslim. The tagline for this group is referenced in the top left-hand corner of the first chart is Texas, homeland of guns, barbecue, and your heart, with the words time to secede emboldened on the Texas flag.
Breakup of the U.S. theme.
Turning to the second group, which is in the bottom right hand, is called the United Muslims of America, with over 328,000 followers. This account claimed to be pro-Islamic themes. The tagline for this group is referenced in the bottom right corner of the first chart is I'm a Muslim and I'm proud. So if I could have the second board up. The Heart of Texas group created a public event on Facebook to occur at noon, May 21st, 2016, at the Islamic Center in Houston, Texas, to stop, quote, to stop the Islamization of Texas, unquote. The same group then placed an advertisement on Facebook to promote their event with over 12,000 people viewed.
Remember when John
Turning to the second group, it's called the United Muslims of America, with over 328,000 followers. This account claimed to push pro-Islamic themes. The tagline for this group is referenced at the bottom, I'm Muslim and I'm proud. The United Muslims of America subsequently created an event on Facebook to occur at noon, May 21st, 2016, at the Islamic Center in Houston, Texas, to, I quote, save Islamic knowledge. Same time, same place as the Heart of Texas event. The group then placed an advertisement targeting people in Houston, Texas area to promote their event to support the Islamic Center. More than 2,700 people viewed this ad. In fact, could have the third board. On May 21st, 2016, local news captured the events as they unfolded, reporting on the protest staged by the Heart of Texas group and resulting counter-protests. The pictures you see on the third board are from the streets in front of the Islamic Center in Houston, Texas. What neither side could have known is that Russia trolls were encouraging both sides to battle in the streets and create division between real Americans.
The conflict.
Ironically, one person who attended stated, the Heart of Texas promoted this event, but we didn't see one of them. We now know why. It's hard to attend an event in Houston, Texas, when you're trolling from a site in St. Petersburg, Russia. Establishing these two competing groups, paying for the ads, and causing this disruptive event in Houston cost Russia about $200. And Mr. Stretch, you commented yesterday that your company's goal was bringing people together.
Probably with their own intelligence agencies' help.
In this case,
and data.
People were brought together to foment
So they're bringing out
conflict.
truth, but they're
And
omitting
Facebook
truth
enabled that event to happen. I would say that Facebook has failed their goal. From a computer in St. Petersburg, Russia, these operators can create and promote events anywhere in the United States and attempt to tear apart
So they're
our
using
society.
this for World War III propaganda.
I'm certain that our
It's part of the
adversaries are
nationalism
learning
that's
from
gonna
the
build.
Russian activities and even watching us today. Simply put, you must do better to protect the American people and, frankly, all of your users from this kind of manipulation. My time can start now. I have one simple question, yes or no, from each of you. I'll start with Mr. Stretch and work my way to your left. The Federal Election Campaign Act prohibits any foreign national from spending funds in connection with any federal, state, or local elections in the United States. Doesn't this law prohibit your publication of this content? Mr. Stretch?
Prohibit publication of the content we've seen.
Does FEC law apply to Facebook?
Watch his body language.
Certainly, FEC law, yes, applies
It
to.
prohibits
It's like
foreign
he's acting nervous.
dollars influence an election.
It's
It
like
prohibits
the whole thing's rigged, really.
foreign actors from using really any medium, including Facebook, to influence a U.S.
So
election.
FEC law applies to Facebook.
Yes, it does.
Mr. Edgett?
It applies to Twitter as well.
Applies to Twitter. Mr. Walker?
Yes, sir.
Great. The prevalence of social media use among military members who spend so much time outside the country deployed, away from friends, away from family. Seems a likely target for foreign intelligence agencies who want to collect details on U.S. force movements,
This is fairly
deployments,
serious.
and
They
other
can have
sensitive
both
insight.
sides of a conflict
Do you monitor your
manipulated and be out in the
platforms for
open, and I've
indications
seen
that
this
your
myself
users in
on
the U.S.
Facebook.
military are targeted
Both
in
sides,
any way?
multiple demographics targeted by fake news.
Mr. Stretch?
Senator, yes, and I would say that sort of security work really falls into the traditional cybersecurity work that we've long been focused on. We've had a threat intelligence team for years now that has been focused on tracking foreign actors, and it's exactly that sort of threat that we believe has historically been an area of focus for our adversaries and likewise an area of focus for us on the defensive side.
Mr. Edge?
It's a build-up to an
Similar to
online
Mr.
police
Stretch,
state.
we've been focused on that type of threat for years. We're also focused on education on the other side and helping law enforcement and military personnel understand how to use Twitter and both its benefits and its risks.
Mr. Walker?
Data mining.
We've been looking at cyber espionage for some years, and this is all in focus. And because we're not a social network, we may not have as much visibility as to whether individual users of our service are veterans or not, but that would certainly be an area of concern.
These questions are for Facebook, Mr. Stretch. In a blog published September 6, 2017, Alex Stamis, Facebook's chief security officer, wrote that the company had discovered about 3,000 political ads that were paid for through 470 fake accounts and pages that likely operated out of Russia. Facebook shut down these accounts on the grounds that they were inauthentic. Had these accounts not violated Facebook's prohibition against fake accounts, would they have been shut down?
Senator, many of them would have, because many of them violated other policies related to the type of content that's permitted on the platform. The authenticity issue is the key. Referring to the content you surfaced earlier, it pains us as a company, it pains me personally to see that that our platform was abused in this way. People in this country care deeply and what about issues of public concern, and it's one of the strengths of our country that people are so willing to speak freely about them. The fact that foreign actors were able to use our platform to exploit that openness is a deeply painful lesson for us, and one we're focused on learning from going forward.
Does it trouble you that it took this committee to get you to look at the authentic nature of the users and the content?
Senator, we are certainly troubled, I'd say more than troubled, by the evidence of abuse of our platform during 2016, and we're certainly grateful for the committee's investigation and the attention you're bringing to this issue. We think it's very important. We do believe that it's a larger issue than any one company, and we believe that going forward there are opportunities not just for us to do better, but for us to work together to make sure we're all addressing this threat appropriately.
What characteristics would indicate that an account or page is likely operated out of Russia?
There are a number of characteristics that can signal potential location. The most obvious one that is typically the most reliable is location information that's transmitted by the user's browser when they access Facebook.
To calm themselves that they use.
It's also the most easily manipulable. There are many other signals that similarly will suggest location, but because of the way the internet is architected, can also be faked. Our job is to look not just for the signals that are in plain sight, but understand how they can be manipulated and look for patterns of activity that reveal efforts to abuse our platform that are shrouded both geographically and in other ways.
That lady
Mr.
on the
Edge,
right,
your
she's
vice
buying
president of
nothing,
Twitter stated that Twitter is expanding its team and resources and building new tools and processes to combat automated Twitter accounts or bots. What is Twitter's process for identifying a bot?
We have a lot of data behind sort of the things you see on Twitter that looks at the activity of an account. And remember, there are hundreds of millions of accounts. The activity of account as it relates to other accounts. So as you or I, Senator, tweet, our activity looks pretty normal. As an automated account tweets thousands of times an hour or logs in thousands of times a day, that looks pretty suspicious. So our technology is looking for that anomaly that differentiates sort of normal accounts from automated accounts. But spammers and bad actors are getting better at making themselves look more real.
So what percentage of
bad actors
accounts on Twitter are actually bots and not real people?
So we do a monthly audit of this and investigation, and determined that for years, less than 5% of our accounts are false accounts or spam.
What happens to accounts on Twitter that are suspended by Twitter? Is there an indefinite status?
Once we suspend an account, especially an automated account, they're typically permanently banned from the platform. And we also do work to link those accounts with new accounts that may pop up. So the more we investigate and look into this and build the web of information around the signals we're seeing from these accounts, the better we get at linking those accounts and stopping them before they get on the platform.
My time has expired, but I'm going to ask you to submit in writing for the record Twitter's assessment of why independent assessments of the number of bots on Twitter consistently are higher than the 5% that you've stated today, if you would provide that for the record.
Happy to provide that for the record and address it today.
Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to demonstrate, but I'd also, as we're getting ready, we have had testimony before this committee from a representative of NATO that fake and bot accounts on Twitter are more in the 12 to 15% account. A vast number of research studies, 320 million active Twitter accounts. Even if you assume 10%, you're still talking 30 plus million potential accounts that could be misused and abused. If we could put up the chart here, this is another example of how people are kind of lured in. First ad is an ad that is pretty benign. It's obviously targeted towards Christians. It's a Army of Jesus Facebook ad. 217,000 followers. You like that page, and here's what happens.
Posts like
you would get Facebook. A series of, for the most part, relatively benign Bible quotes or other items. This ad appeared in October of 16, and late October, early November, suddenly this benign site, in addition to your Bible quotes, suddenly we're getting these other posts, not paid ads, but posts from this organization. This message, obviously the bottom one would have gone to the 217,000 followers. We have no idea how many times it was liked or shared with other individuals. Again, we've got two different examples of the type of tools, how people lure people in, and then once they're lured into what they think is a pro-Texas or pro-Muslim or here pro-Jesus account, and then they are manipulated by foreign actors and foreign agents. Go ahead and start my time. First of all, I hear all your words, but I have more than a little bit of frustration.
Their time start when they open their mouth?
That many of us on this committee have been raising this issue since the beginning of this year. And our claims were frankly blown off by the leaderships of your companies, dismissed, said there's no possibility, nothing like this happening, nothing to see here. Bothers me, if you're really committed to trying to work with us to resolve this, that it took until this committee continually went at you, and it was July and early August when you made your first presentations. And candidly, your first presentations were less than sufficient and showed, in my mind, a lack of resources, a lack of commitment, and a lack of genuine effort. Candidly, your companies know more about Americans in many ways than the United States government does. And the idea that you had no idea of any of this was happening strains my credibility. So my first question is this, and I want a yes or no answer, not a filibuster. Will you commit to continue to work with this committee to provide additional information and additional
Online
documents
police
as
state
needed
problem
as we
reaction
continue to
solution.
explore this challenge and threat on a going forward basis. We go right down the line. Mr. Stretch?
Yes.
Mr. Reddick?
Absolutely.
Mr. Walker?
Absolutely.
We're going to go down the
Next.
line. We don't do it again.
One of the things that I
Do it
continue
again.
again, and I will commend you here, that from our friends at Facebook, you identified 470 accounts, 3,000 ads. And most of the work, at least it appears to me, from at least Twitter and Facebook, has all been derivative of that initial data dump. And again, this is a yes or no question. Do you believe that any of your companies have identified the full scope of Russian active measures on your platform? Yes or no?
Senator, our investigation continues. So I would have to say no, certainly not with certainty.
Mr. Regent?
No, and we're still working on this.
Mr. Walker?
I believe we have done a comprehensive investigation, but as Mr. Stretch says, these are ongoing issues and we continue to investigate.
Let me start again with Facebook here. You've identified 470 accounts from one troll farm in St. Petersburg. There have been plenty of press reports of other troll farms in Russia. There have been reports of other activities that were Russian-controlled in Central Europe and Eastern Europe. In meetings with your leadership, as you became more aware of this problem, you aggressively promoted the fact, for example, that you took down 30,000 accounts around the French elections. Now, you say not all of those were Russian-related. Have you gone back and cross-checked those Russian-related accounts that you took down in France to see if any of those accounts were active in the American election?
Senator, the 30,000 accounts that we took down in...
The accounts that were related to Russian accounts that you took down,
Right here.
your leadership
This is why you guys
bragged
need to
about
see
how
this. They're acting like they're
proactively you
investigating
were
something.
in the French election process. Did you check those accounts to see if any of them were active in the American elections?
Senator, the system that ran to take down those accounts, which were fake accounts of really all type and for any purpose, is now active worldwide.
Have you
operated?
just please answer my question? Have you reviewed the accounts you took down in France that were Russian-related to see if they had played any role in the American election?
Senator, I apologize. I'm trying to answer the question.
Well, the answer is yes or no. I don't want a long explanation. I want to know, have you done, because I've been signaling this to you for some time. We wanted to make sure that you would review those accounts. We wanted to make sure what the 470 accounts that paid for the 3,000 ads, you said these were all accounts except for one that were paid for in rubles. Did you even run those accounts to see if any of those accounts were paid for with dollars or euros or other currencies?
Senator, let me try to state it absolutely. So we have,
Mr.
and we
Stretch,
continue.
yes or no?
Yes, we are looking and have looked at every possible indication of Russian activity in the 2016 election, and the investigation continues.
Sir.
That includes any evidence we've identified from those 38,000 accounts, as well as a number of
All those accounts have been run, that database has been run to see if any of those accounts were active in the United States.
I will have to come back to you on that, Senator.
Sir, we've had this hearing scheduled for months.
Sir?
I find your answer very, very disappointing. On the question of, we just discovered, and I appreciate this, you had 80,000 views in terms of Russian views on Facebook. We now discover in the last 48 hours, 120,000 Russian-based posts on Instagram. Have you done any of the similar analysis on those 120,000 posts? We know the 80,000 ended up reaching 126 million Americans. Have you done that same analysis on the 120,000 posts on Instagram?
Yes, Senator, we have.
And how many Americans did those touch?
The data on Instagram is not as complete, but the data that we do have indicates that beginning in October of 2016, those Instagram posts reached an additional 16 million people, in addition to the 126 million people that we identify.
So now we're seeing the Russian activities roughly at 150 million plus Americans without knowing how many times they were reshared.
If I can add the time period prior to October 16th, where our data is less reliable, would yield an incremental 4 million. So all told, that gets you to approximately a little less than 150 million. That's correct,
Senator,
Senator.
on the Twitter account, there was one activity, and this is not something that happened during 2016. Again, I agree with the chairman. We're not here to relitigate 2016. But there was a fake Tennessee Republican account, 10 GOP. The irony was this account had 154,000 followers. The real Tennessee GOP party
situations you have like
had
a prosecutor
13,400 followers, I believe, based on your numbers.
like outside of court.
I find very interesting. There have been some people who've said, well, people should be able to spot these fake accounts. Well, if they're able to spot these fake accounts, you had the president's communications director retweeting this account, Kellyanne Conway. You had the president's son, Donald Trump Jr., retweeting this account. My question is, why did it take so long to take this down when the Tennessee Republican Party was asking you repeatedly?
Yeah, that was an absolute miss, and we've gotten better since. We've refined our policies around impersonation and parody accounts.
Let me just close with this. My time's about up. We've looked on this subject on political information and disinformation. But the same way that these bots and trolls and click farms and fake pages, groups, algorithm gaming can be used in politics, these same tools can and have been used, I believe, to assist financial frauds around stock schemes. I think there is a lot of this activity in broad-based digital advertising. I think we've seen some of this in schemes to sell counterfeit prescription drugs, as well as the ability to encourage folks to download malware. I believe this is a real challenge, and to get this right, we're going to need your ongoing cooperation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Risch.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you for coming today. By now, it's probably pretty obvious to everyone that this committee has spent lots and lots and lots of time on this, both as it relates to the election and on these kinds of things not related to the political process here in the country. But we have spent a lot of time, and I think have been able to reach some conclusions on this. No one's exempt. I come from a state that's a lot smaller, Idaho.
Okay,
they tried to do exactly in Idaho exactly what was done in Texas, where they tried to promote a meeting where they had two conflicting sides, and no one showed up. So it wasn't there was no success in Texas. And in Idaho, just like Texas, it had absolutely nothing to do with the 2016 presidential election. It was simply a cultural type of acrimony that they were attempting to promote. The chairman talked about the news reports that allege that the Russians use social media to promote a particular candidate, and may even, some of those suggest that they changed the result of the election. But this whole thing goes a lot deeper than that. One of the things we've discovered, and I think you probably are aware of this, that you can't look at those ads and say, okay, they were all promoting one particular candidate. There were ads going both ways, for and against both candidates by the Russians. And that's, I'm going to get back to that in just a second. But the other thing that I think that we've come to the conclusion on, and very early, is the U.S. isn't the only ones that have suffered from this. The Europeans, France, Austria, Germany, just amongst others, have suffered from the exact same thing, and that is Russian attempted interference with their domestic affairs. I put a section in the sanctions bill, the Iran, Russia, North Korea sanctions bill, that requires the executive branch to do a study on this, on the effect in Europe, because they were much more overt in Europe than they were here. Most of the work they did here was covert, and probably because in European countries there is actually a fair amount of Russian sympathy where they can mobilize these people. Not so much here in the United States. Obviously some, but not nearly what there is there. So I want to come at this from a little different perspective. The 2016 elections got a lot of the politicians riled up because it went after the political process. But my conclusion is, and I think most people here would agree with me, that, and indeed Senator Warner referred to this, that this is a lot deeper than just the elections. There are a lot of things that the Russians are trying to do, and not just inject themselves into the electoral process. It seems to me that if you step back and look at this and say, what's going on here? What is the motivation? What are they doing? I always look at something from an objective standpoint. What is their objective? What are they trying to accomplish? And you walk away from it just shaking your head because we Americans don't think the same way they think about promoting our country. So the conclusion I've reached is that the Russians are doing what they've done all along, long before your technology even existed, and that is trying to sow discord. Simply trying to sow discord. And so my question to each of you is, have you tried to analyze what the Russians were trying to accomplish here, not only in the 2016 elections, but in these other kinds of ads with the discord? Or your personal views on that, whether they've, what they're trying to accomplish. Mr. Stretch?
Senator, it's very difficult for us to ascribe motive. It's, I think, why this committee's work is so important. We've tried to provide you as much information as we can, and we hope that with your visibility into other sources of information, you will be able to help the American people have a better assessment of what the motive is. We think that'll help all of us do better to prevent this sort of activity in the future.
Would you agree with me that the motive isn't obvious here, given the difference in the way they handle these things?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Mr. Agent?
I would agree with that as well. I mean, based on what we've seen, the advertisements from Russia today, the types of content that was being put out by the IRA, also the automated account content, looks as if it's merely focused on divisiveness. But we're still investigating this issue and look forward to working with this committee to help put the whole picture together.
Mr. Walker?
The large majority of the material we saw was on the socially divisive side rather than direct electoral advocacy, yes.
And that has really been the focus of the media, that, oh, this was all about the 2016 election. You agree with me that this is much broader than that and is, as you say, divisive, aimed at divisiveness or aimed at discord. Would you all agree with that?
Yeah, and that's a problem we're trying to tackle every day.
Mr. Stretch, you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree, and note that the time period in question and the activity we saw even continued after the election.
Mr. Walker?
That seems reasonable. Hard for us to know, and again, ultimately for the committee to decide.
I appreciate that, and as I said, my view of this is a whole lot broader than simply the 2016 election. Mr. Walker, I have a specific question for you. I think I heard you say that you're enacting a policy where only a U.S. national can buy an election ad. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What about other countries? Obviously, you operate in places other than the United States. Can a U.S. national buy an ad, for instance, for French or German or Austrian campaign?
I haven't studied the laws of individual countries, but we are not confining our work to the U.S. We are looking at other elections around the world to make sure that we do whatever we can to minimize electoral interference.
So what you're going to do is try to confine people to their own elections in their own countries? Is that pretty much your...
Certainly that's the case for the United States and any other country around the world where that's the law. That's true, yes.
I think that's going to be a big challenge for you, but good luck, and I wish you well in that endeavor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Feinstein.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, here we go.
I sat in on the judiciary hearing yesterday. It was a subcommittee hearing, but was able to ask some questions. And I want to just make a personal comment, because I've been very proud, and I know Senator Harris is as well, to represent this tech community from California. But I must say, I don't think you get it. I think the fact that you're general counsels, you defend your company, that what we're talking about is a cataclysmic change. What we're talking about is the beginning of cyber warfare. What we're talking about is a major foreign power with the sophistication and ability to involve themselves in a presidential election and sow conflict and discontent all over this country. We are not going to go away, gentlemen. And this is a very big deal. I went home last night with profound disappointment. I asked specific questions. I got vague answers. And that just won't do. You have a huge problem on your hands. And the United States is going to be the first of the countries to bring it to your attention, and others are going to follow, I'm sure, because you bear this responsibility. You've created these platforms, and now they are being misused. And you have to be the ones to do something about it. Or we will. And this committee is intelligence. It's different from yesterday. So they're privy to different facts, and they're very potent facts. Let me go back to a couple of questions that I asked yesterday. Mr. Edgett, yesterday you testified that Twitter only began to remove voter suppression posts that told people they could vote by texting or tweeting after you found out about them from other Twitter users. These were illegal
These are real issues.
Waiting for users to alert Twitter isn't sufficient.
But because
I'll give you another chance.
Democrats
what
like
is Twitter doing
others,
to proactively identify
and other Republicans
illegal
that run against
voter
Trump,
suppression
they make it seem political,
tweets?
so people just laugh at the whole
Thank
thing.
you for letting me address that. We're constantly improving, not only on our technology around automated accounts that are trying to amplify these types of messages,
That's not enough.
but also on putting people and technology on the content and the behavior, and trying to make our workflows, our reporting flows more efficient, and using artificial intelligence to prioritize things like the illegal voter suppression ads and other things that we see on the platform, and taking those down faster. We are getting better, but this is a problem that we are focused on getting better at every day.
Well, you have to find a way to prevent them from going up.
That's right, and that's why we tend
That's
to
the problem.
Right, that's why we tend to focus on behavior behind the accounts to know before the content goes up. We've seen great strides in other areas not related to that, and so we're trying to take that same solution to this problem set.
Okay, Mr. Walker, I asked your colleague yesterday why Google didn't immediately revoke Russia Today's preferred status after the intelligence community determined and publicly stated that RT was a part of the Russian government's efforts to interfere in our election. Mr. Salgado told me that RT only lost its preferred status because of a, quote, drop in viewership, end quote, not because it was part of the Kremlin's propaganda machine. This response was deeply troubling and, frankly, did not answer my question. So here it is again. Why didn't Google take any action regarding RT after the intelligence community assessment came out in January of 2017. I'm sorry, your mic isn't on.
Senator, let me start by responding to your initial comments to assure you we take this and have taken this issue very seriously. The question of cyber espionage is one that we have been working on for some years, publicly and privately, working with other companies and working on our own to identify some of these threats. This is one manifestation of that, but not the only one. With regard to RT, we recognize the concerns that have been expressed about RT and concerns about its slanted coverage. This is, of course, a question that goes beyond the internet. RT is covered, its channel is on major cable television stations, on satellite television stations. Its advertising appears in newspapers, magazines, airports. It's run in hotels in pretty much every city in the United States. We have carefully reviewed the content of RT to see that it complies with the policies that we have against hate speech, incitement to violence, etc. So far, we have not found violations, but we continue to look. Beyond that, we think that the key to this area is transparency. If Americans should have access to information from a wide variety of perspectives, they should know what they're getting. And so we already, on Google, provide information about the government-funded nature of RT. We're looking on ways to expand that to YouTube and potentially other platforms.
Well, as you might guess, I'm really not satisfied with that. That's sort of been the trend of the testimony all along. I think we're in a different day now. We're at the beginning of what could be cyber war. And you all, as a policy matter, have to really take a look at that and what role you play. I think my time is almost up. Let me try one more. A British report recently concluded that social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube fail to remove extremist material posted by banned jihadists and neo-Nazi groups, even when that material was reported. The source for this is the British Parliament's Home Affairs Select Committee. Last night, we saw a horrific attack on innocent people in New York by an individual who may have been radicalized
Convenient timing for
online.
the attack, right?
We know one person who is Anwar al-Awlaki, 75,000 hits,
He was a
the major
Twitch addict.
radicalizer in the United States on the internet. I'm working on legislation to require tech companies to report known terrorist activity on their platforms to law enforcement and to provide law enforcement with civil injunction authority. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Feinstein. Senator Rubio.
Thank you. Thank you for all for being here. Mr. Stretch, I want to ask you, and it relates to all this in the following way, but let me work there. Guo Wenwei is a whistleblower and a critic of the Chinese government. And his Facebook account was blocked, and Facebook has informed us and said publicly that he violated terms of service. I think he published personal identifying information about individuals, and that violated the terms of service. So, and I understand that argument. My question, what I want to be clear is, was there any pressure from the Chinese government to block his account?
No, Senator. We reviewed a report on that account and analyzed it through regular channels using our regular procedures. The blocking was not of the account in its entirety, but I believe was of specific posts that violated our policy.
So you can testify today that you did not come under pressure from the Chinese government or any of its representatives or people working for them to block his account or to block whatever it is you blocked.
I want to make sure I'm being precise and clear. We did receive a report from representatives of the Chinese government about the account. We analyzed that report as we would any other and took action solely based on our policies.
Facebook is not allowed to operate in China. Is that correct?
That's correct. Our consumer services are blocked in China. That's correct.
Okay. There have been press reports that Facebook may have potentially developed software to suppress posts from appearing in people's news feeds in specific geographic areas. And the speculation is it's being done for the purposes of getting into the Chinese market. Is that accurate? Has Facebook developed software to suppress posts from appearing in people's news feeds in specific geographic areas?
Senator, as you know, we are blocked in China, so any software we have is certainly not operative there. We do have many.
Okay, so this is the end of this YouTube video, which I downloaded, and it goes immediately to the event in New York. You see? And that's basically the end of the video. Just kind of dangles here for a few minutes. And if you watch part one, they really put emphasis at the beginning and at the end. ISIS, online videos recruiting, and they put all the Russian stuff in the middle. But they really use it as a bait and switch. How many of you know down below are able to see the bait and switch? How they're using this to come after the alternative media. So I really need you to sign up to my newsletter at tinyurl.com/OTBTV. Or go to alexhansen.tv, click on the tab at the top, click on newsletter, sign up. Get in the habit of getting my videos directly. Let's bypass the social media giants that are burying the little guy. And you know, in the alternative media world, and I've been at this for about 12 years, but as far as numbers, I don't even have close to reach others do. I need you to sign up for that newsletter. There's going to be more coming. So thank you for watching this presentation. Subscribe if you're new. If you're able to, please also join up over at Patreon. The link is down below. Support independent media. I'll be back.